right, from the hospital of Jane Gary Pancreatic Cancer Cast. And he's got some friends of mine that dropped by that he wants to talk to that he seems to think have been important in my life. Here we go.
All right, thank you, Jay. I think these are the guys that you were referring to. I really don't know them, but we'll find out. I got to go back behind the camera. I'm going to make this guy do the show.
Yeah, that's right, baby.
Well,
You're the MC.
am I? I don't know how good I'm going to be at that.
Introduce everybody.
All right, well, this is Wade. This is Jocko.
Really funny? Yeah.
Go ahead, Jocko.
That's
I
Jocko.
was going to say, wouldn't it be really funny if we aren't the guys that Jay wanted? That would be.
I can tell you this. I'm pretty sure we aren't the guys he wanted.
Good, right.
After about 20 minutes, he's going to regret it.
Right. Well, why don't we let Wade introduce yourself?
My name is Wade Farrell. I went to college with Jay Pierce. I've known him for a number of years. He's my bro. As I have keen to say about people that I care about, I will take a bullet for him any day of the week, and twice on Sunday, unless he's really got a gun, and then maybe I won't do it for him. But
Jocko, introduce yourself.
Just in case, Jay, you don't know who I am, I'm the guy who gums is hanging out. That you like. You love that.
And I'm Jay Headblade.
Jocko.
So this is my brother Jock here, and Jock and I were programming a specialty radio show in Chicago, Illinois, and it's a very long story, but through that process, we got connected with Jay Pierce, and we ended up launching an entire radio station right here in Champaign, Illinois, that was among the very first radio stations in the world to broadcast live over the internet. And a lot of people make that claim, but we were actually there first. And like most pioneers, we got scalped.
Yeah, that's true. And as I remember, Jay, that the whole thing about the internet thing for that radio station was your idea, but
well, I did dream up the entire internet for sure. That was definitely me.
Yeah, it was screw Gore. What a guy coming in there trying to take your
right.
No, but I mean the idea of broadcasting live on the internet for this station, WEBX, the web, was really your original idea. But I will say that without somebody like Jay Pierce, that would have never happened, because you and I could have the ideas, and we had a lot of them, some good, some stupid, but no matter what idea it was, if we had the idea and Jay was down with it, it was going to happen. And yeah, it was pretty monumental that we were on, we were streaming live 24/7, what, in like 1995, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 95.
I mean, the internet right then is like infantile.
Well,
right?
the thing I always remind people of is to give you a perspective of what it was like to be a live streaming radio station in 1995. Most people had 58K dial-up modems. Nobody even had high-speed internet at that point. That did not exist. I don't think there was anything of high-speed internet unless it was in the computer lab at the University of Illinois may have had some sort of fiber optic line or something that was faster, but anything anyone was using at home was just slow and very primitive. But
Careful,
there we were.
There might be a patent lawyer listening.
Did we use U of I to help us? Did they help us with that?
I don't know if they helped us, but I do know that was part of the reason that we settled on coming here to start that radio station.
Right.
Was because the internet was indeed very much forged here in Champaign. So it made sense, and it was a good marketing thing to do. And of course, we were Illinois based anyway, so it kind of all fell together that way. But I would agree to make this about the guy we're talking about. I've often thought about, like, we really had a really very fun, and it was a cool radio station. Everyone that was involved there would tell you that it was a very good time that we had.
Yes.
We were all dreaming it up together and making it happen, and flying by the seat of our pants, as any good radio station will be. If you're not flying by the seat of your pants, I don't think you're doing radio right. No. But that's just me. But we were definitely doing that. But I've reflected on it many, many times how it was so crucial that it was Jay Pierce that was our general manager in my mind can't quite wrap around the fact that if it wasn't him, how it would have happened at all, and it certainly wouldn't have happened the way it happened without him. And I will also give a lot of credit to Andy Pierce there too, because Andy Pierce was our engineer, Lucky, as we called him, Lucky Pierce. Gary, I don't know if you ever knew that as his nickname, but we called him Lucky, and it was because he would pull off these engineering miracles, and he would do it like, oh yeah, I just did it. And you're like, yeah.
I know that this might sound hyperbolic, but I will tell you, I don't think that there was any way in the world that radio station gets on the air without the Pierce brothers. I mean, I don't think there's anybody else in the world that could have done it. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I don't believe there's anybody else that could have come into what we had there, which was nothing.
Garbage.
And in a short period of time, have that on the air and have it, in the rating books, and us, becoming one of the most popular stations in the area at the time. I don't think there's anybody else in the country or the world that could have done what those two guys did.
And Jay Pierce.
I really don't.
And Jay Pierce is because, the radio is his DNA. I mean, it is really who he is.
Well, it's funny. I was saying this the other night. Yeah, I got this bee hanging out around me.
Loves the sweetness on me.
I don't take compliments well, like some of us don't do, and I find it hard to absorb things when people say, "Oh, you did a great job," or "This was a great radio station," or whatever. And I'm grateful that people feel that way, but it's hard for me to absorb it. But I remember having a chat this is getting into some stories with Jay Pierce, and this was only within the last, I want to say, 10 or 15 years. Jay and I were reminiscing about the web and that radio station, and I said some similar things, like it wouldn't have happened without you and Andy, and Jock and I were, we were programmers, and I'm not going to say that we didn't do a good job at what we were doing, but and I said to Jay, I said, if I could be half the radio guy you are, that would be something. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're an amazing radio guy." And I was like, what are you talking about, man? You've accomplished so much. I just did a couple of startups that kind of failed. And he said, he looked me in the eyes and in all sincerity he's like, you breathe and love this medium. You love it. And you want it to be better than it is. And you worked 24 hours a day, every day, to try to make the greatest radio station you could. And he goes, if that isn't a radio guy, I don't know what is. And that was a compliment. That was a compliment that I took to my heart. I'm getting choked up saying it, because that made me feel, well, to me, it was this. If Jay Pierce legitimizes me that way, then I'm going to consider myself a radio person.
Yeah, that's upper echelon, man. I mean, I'll tell a different tangent story. So about almost 2 years ago now, my stepdaughter got married in New Jersey. So Jay Pierce drives from the Quad Cities. I mean, it had to be the Quad Cities, to New Jersey, comes to the wedding, comes to the reception. He sits down next to me. We have a couple glasses of wine, and he looks me straight in the eye and he says, "Wade, you made this blended family work. It's all because of you." And he was dead on serious. And we laughed and we hugged, and then the next day he drove all the way back. Like this, who does that? I mean, it was a true and genuine compliment.
Oh yeah.
That I was like, well, I just tried my best. He goes, "No, you didn't try your best. You did your best." That sort of thing. And that's what I remembered. I will always remember. I do remember, and I will remember tomorrow and the next day until the day, of my demise. That Jay Pierce is. I have this, he's a good dude. If you're a good dude, that's it. You don't get any higher than that.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. We both had a story about it being complimented by him and how that means something. I have a funny Jay Pierce story for you too.
I got a couple.
Yeah, we got a few because he's a funny man. I'm sure if you, but so when we were launching this radio station, we were all still kind of getting to know each other. We weren't the best, close, tight friends that we are today. Because that radio station,
I think Jay Pierce might have even been just a little bit suspicious of us.
Oh, yes, I would agree.
Rightly so.
Yeah, rightly so. So we're still getting to know each other, and I know that you're going to get that.
Maybe.
Okay.
I'll just keep.
Yeah, you keep. I won't flinch if you do. So we're there, and we're trying to. We have an old automation system. It was old at the time in '95 that we had, like most things that we had at the web radio station WEBX, we had scavenged from other radio stations that were jettisoning their equipment and upgrading, and we were getting hand-me-downs. And again, testament to the Pierce brothers that could string all of this equipment and to turn it into something because they knew all of those things. But my brother and I were loading music into this automation system. And again, we're in 1995 load in. That isn't rip a song file and drop it in there. That was dropping a song into the system in real time. We had to play out every single song in its entirety, set its tones and cues and tops and tails, all that kind of stuff. And if you messed up, you started all over again. So we are literally, it was about, I think it was 3 weeks of us close to 24 hours a day taking shifts, loading songs and music into this because we had a very big music catalog. And so Jay and Lucky are out for the day, and it was evening, sorry. They're out in the evening. Jock and I are at the radio station late by ourselves. And we're loading these songs in. And Jock pulls up this song that we're going to play. It's a brand new album by a band called Southern Culture on the Skids. And it's a song called Soul City. And it's a really cool song. If you haven't heard it, you can go find it on YouTube, and it's an awesome tune, and we played a lot on the web. But the first line in the song is, it don't matter if your pants are shiny, if your dick is big or your dick is tiny. Okay? And as if this were in a movie, Jock begins to load that in right when Jay and Lucky walk into the room.
Yeah.
And there was like a pause. Oh yeah, they scared us because we weren't expecting him to come in anyway, and then we just were loading in music that.
Right.
And Jay Pierce says, "What's this?" And Jock and I freeze like. Yeah, and he's like, "That's a fucking great song. Play that again." and I know for Jock and I, at that moment, we looked at each other, and I think we were both like, "Oh, this station's gonna work."
Everything's gonna be okay. Everything is gonna be
Yeah, and he was
somebody just as crazy as we are.
A similar story, and I'll make this one more brief if I can. We had a band called the Rugburns that we played a lot of.
Oh yeah.
And they were a wild group of gentlemen, to say the least. And when they would roll into town to play a show for us, and we had them in several times.
Steve Poltz and the gang.
Yeah, Steve Poltz and the boys. It was wild, and it was funny and raucous. And so we had them in one time. They came into the recording studio. Jock, I believe it was during your...
Back up. Show you back up into, we say recording studio. Oh. This was like a... Yeah. It was like a tree fort. It was more like a tree fort with some wires and some microphones and that stuff.
We had no soundproofing. We were running a radio station out of a studio that had no soundproofing.
Out of this, what had been an abandoned building at the time, right? I mean, like had nobody in it.
Seemed like a doctor's office or something. I don't know what it was.
And so when we moved into it, it's like we just brought the equipment in. We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything else to the place.
You didn't
paint the walls.
You didn't hang like egg stuff on the walls or anything?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
We eventually, I think, put some stuff up, but the whole idea was that we were going to move the studio anyway. Back to the story here. So the Rugburns come in there. Jock's doing the afternoon shift, and they're gonna play live on his afternoon shift. We bring them in, and because they are just insane people, and I'm not using that hyperbolically, they were kind of insane. In the middle. Okay, and I got an alarm going off. This is going to be a great podcast right now. Look at me. Look at how professional I am as a broadcaster right now. Do you understand why I don't have a career in this anymore?
Perfect for this show.
Yeah, okay. So, the Rugburns are in. They're playing a song. They're playing live. Steve Poltz, the lead singer, stops the song. He goes, hold on. Makes the whole band stop.
Live. This is, again, let's stress, this is live on the air.
Right. No delay, because if we didn't have any soundproofing, we didn't have a delay system at the radio station, right? Let's just go with that. So, hold on, stop. Grabs the microphone, puts it to his ass, and farts live on the air. Goes out over the airwaves. Of course, like with anything, we were always rolling tape when bands were in, so we had a tape of that. And we get done, and everyone was shocked. I think he was even shocked at his own behavior in that particular.
He was. I think. Well, go ahead with the story.
So the point of this was, we're like, God, I hope Pierce didn't hear that. I just hope he was too busy because he's the GM, and it's like, okay, we're just gonna let that one go. We're just gonna like Steve did. We're gonna let it go. 2 hours later, something like that, Jay Pierce walks in the front door. First thing he says to me, he goes, "Hey, were you rolling tape on those Rugburns today?" Like, yeah, we were. He's like, "Yeah, dub that off for me. I want to play that fart tomorrow morning on the morning show." And there it was in a nutshell. That explains who he was and what that radio station was. And is it any wonder it ain't on the air anymore?
Well, to give you an idea of why I think Steve did that, because you could tell on his face he couldn't believe he did it, is that because we were, our radio station, you didn't walk into this and felt like you were in a radio station. It really was just like like the Little Rascals, clubhouse or something when you walked in there. Yeah. And when even the way that we kind of, did things on the air, it was very relaxed and casual, and I think Steve and the boys forgot that they were on the air until we turned around and looked at him after he did that. Yeah. And it was kind of like, hey, this is live. Yeah. But I think that's just kind of the attitude we had there. It was very, It wasn't, I don't think it felt like your normal radio station.
I would say, I say this truthfully about that, and I don't know a lot about WEBX, but I think it might have been 10 or 15 years behind or ahead of its time, if you will, because I can see that totally succeeding in this day and age.
Maybe it would have.
I think you're right with the internet and everything. I think we were, and that's why when you're ahead like that, it's hard to get everybody else to kind of catch up to it.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that the station itself, was pretty popular in that town.
We put it in the books. Within 6 months, we put it in the books, and that signal that had been around for 25 years or so had never been in a ratings book ever in the Champaign-Urbana market. Now, again, I will always give a lot of credit to Andy Pierce for just improving the signal enough to get it in there. But, I'll take some credit. I think we definitely had an interesting radio station. It wasn't boring, and it wasn't predictable.
Our programming was good, but again, this goes back to Jay Pierce. At the time, and thanks to Jay Headblade here, we were getting written up in the trade magazines and that stuff because we were so rebellious and we're not playing along with the radio game, because we remember what radio was like, in the FM era and that stuff. And I don't think that there'd be another program director in the world, in the United States either, that would take a radio station and take two people that were programming the way we were from our guts and the seat of our pants and say, yeah, go run with it, have a good time. Who would do that? It was risky what we were doing. Even at the beginning, Jay Pierce himself will admit that it was like when we were showing him what we wanted to do, he didn't get it until he heard the music.
Yeah.
And then he got it.
Yeah, but that said, like a good boss, he's like, all right, well, these were the guys that were hired to program, so I'm going to let them program. And I'm sure that if it wasn't working or whatever, Jay would have been able to come in there and apply himself, because I don't think he would have been shy at that either. But I
Nope.
I agree with you that it was weird that you and I had a weird vision, but we had no way to know how to execute it. He knew how to execute and facilitate putting the thing on the air, but he wasn't certain about what we were trying to execute programming wise. And then when those two ideas met and he saw who we were and we saw who he was, that's, I think, the thing that formed this friendship that I feel this deep about with him, is that we were kind of the same people coming at something similar. Jay wanted to make radio interesting and lively and unpredictable again.
Well,
Because original FM radio was unpredictable, and that was what made it exciting. And I think as soon as you and I started programming that way, he got that. He was like, "This is interesting."
You said last night that switching gears. First, I have a question.
Go for it.
First, a question about how the web, like how they put bands into Cowboy Monkey or the High Dive. Was that Jay Pierce organizing the whole thing?
It was mostly Jock and I that would we would facilitate those kind of things.
Okay.
We'd get them in the record store and play it in studio, and we talked to all the club owners and stuff like that, and then it's like, hey, we'd like to bring this band, and we have these dates. And it wasn't too hard. Most of those clubs, if they had an open day, they wanted to fill it anyway. Hell, people in there drinking beer is better than people not drinking beer.
Well,
so I don't think they were necessarily buying into what we were doing initially, but they were happy to put people in the room on a Tuesday night when we could get the band in.
So another
But Cody, I will say this: Cody bought into what we were doing, and
Right.
Cody was the barometer of hip in Champaign at that time.
Cody Sokolsky, who ran Periscope Records
okay.
in town at the time.
Once he gave us his stamp of approval, we were okay with the other hipsters in town.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
true.
I think that that Cody was a big part of that too.
For sure, absolutely.
And you mentioned compliments and kind of, what kind of you had a lot of reciprocation with Jay Pierce, because when he was here in Champaign and working at the university
At WILL.
and you had said, you got to get the F out of there.
Yeah.
And he did, and he goes to the Quad Cities and he just blows up the Quad Cities.
Oh, my God.
With his efforts there in fundraising and such. I mean, here's a guy, a jack of all trades.
Really?
And he was like, pitching guys for 6-7 figure sponsorship deals for a public radio station.
Well, that's the amazing thing for me about Jay Pierce is, I can be on air at a radio station and do okay. I can program, do that okay. I can do, I can go do a live remote, or I can present, or I can go on stage and introduce a band. I can do those kind of things that radio stations need, and I can cover a few bases, right? I don't know anyone quite like Jay Pierce who can cover every base.
Everything.
He understands engineering.
And like is strong. I mean, super strong.
Yes.
In all of them.
Yes. He can.
That fundraising thing is one of the hardest things in the world to do. And I think the reason why Jay was so good at it is that it's like it was never. He just approached. First of all, he could talk to anybody, right?
Yep.
And you immediately liked, but it was just a very matter of fact thing. There was like, as soon as Jay could convince you into anything that he believed in, because you'd follow him because you just knew he wasn't full of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was the real deal.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't blowing smoke up your ass. If he said, we need to get this money here and this is what we're going to do with it and we're going to make it happen, you believed him because he was telling you.
Well, that was it. He also he follows through. There's proof to it. I mean, when you said, when he went to the Quad Cities, and that was the thing that I loved about the Quad, because I remember his experience here. He was really, at a period of time, he was miserable here at WILL.
Because the boss was a dick.
Because and they were not they were not treating him with respect, and I wasn't part of that. I was already back in Chicago at that point. But I couldn't understand anyone in radio not treating Jay Pierce with respect. It didn't make any sense to me. Why would you not? No. Yeah. He's a nice guy. He's a hard worker. He's good at what how could you not treat him? It just didn't make sense to me. But he was telling me stories, and I could feel when I talked to him how bummed out and sad he was. And I was like, you need to get the fuck out of this place, man. And I'm not like I made him get out. I think he knew, and he was just waiting for the right opportunity. But then when he moved up to the Quad Cities and all of that exploded, I was like, I hope those assholes in WILL can see what's going on now, man. Because and I was so happy just for him though, because I was like, this is what Jay Pierce deserves.
Well, yeah.
This is what he deserves in radio, and I'm glad that someone valued him.
And a validation.
The guys down there didn't value him, and he goes back. He goes up to the Quad Cities, and before you know it, he's on the board of directors of
NPR.
National Public Radio.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come on.
I'd love to run into those guys at a convention.
Yeah. How do you feel now, schmucko?
Jay Pierce is one of the most talented people I've ever known, and the most, most nonchalant, humble guy about it. I mean, it's just absolute natural talent, and one of his greatest talents is just him being Jay Pierce.
Yeah.
That's what it's just like. Who doesn't love that guy?
I only wish that he lived closer to me. I'd like to see him more often, but I have a lot of projects around my house I could use help with, and he does a lot of that stuff. A lot.
Yeah, he can just do that stuff too, right? Like,
yeah. I just moved 45 bags of gravel this afternoon.
And then I hung some cabinets, and now I'm going to drive all night. Yeah.
Yeah, then I'm going to drive 10 hours back to...
I'm going to drive 10 hours, and I'm going to build a radio station on Thursday. I'm going to do all the board shifts too.
Right.
I'll just record. That's fine.
Right. Well, and the amazing thing is that if he said he was going to do that, he actually would pull those things off. I'd get two of them done.
Absolutely.
He would actually do it. I'm like, how do you manage the time-wise? How do you do it?
I don't care what that guy says. If he tells me he can do it, I believe him. I don't care what it is. That, hey, Jock, next spring I'm going to give birth to a baby elephant. I'll go, okay, you'd be the guy that could do it.
let me sell the tickets.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I got a really random story about Jay. So me and my wife, Margie, and him would have what we call flight school. So this would be where somebody would buy a 6-pack of beer, and then we'd all taste it, and we'd rate it. And so, and the rating system was you just come up with something clever. I think I said on one of my ratings, I think my wife's the only thing that has better body than this beer, or something like that.
Sure.
But it was a lot of. It was just an icebreaker. We would have a lot of fun. Flight school. We'd all rate it. Then Margie would take a picture and probably post it on the Facebook or on Facebook. And but that's kind of a random side cut there.
Nice.
Sorry about that.
It should be stated though, give that Jay Pierce's baseline beer is Stag.
Yes. So everything
There it
was
is.
kind of, yeah.
Oh, Gary, you and I were chatting yesterday. I did say that I have a Stag beer story. And so here's what we're going to do. This was another one of those things. So I gave that story earlier about how Jock and I, we played the song, Jay kind of liked it, and we looked at each other like, this is going to be okay. Here was the next one. And I think it literally was the next one because it was within a few days of that happening.
Right.
So we're setting up the radio station. We're putting all the equipment in there, and it was, like you said, it was a little rascal fun house in there. We're setting it up, and Jay comes in and he starts building a tiny little shelf over the control board. And I'm looking, I'm like, what's that for? And he's like, oh, that's going to be the phone light.
By the way, he built that shelf out of a tree that he grew overnight.
You're right, Chuck, because he told you that and you believed him.
Chopping down the cherry tree.
Yes, he told you that and you believed him. So he's building stuff. So, and for those who aren't in radio, as you might imagine, like, the phone's going to ring, but you can't have a phone going off in the background if you're on the air. So the way that they work it, every radio station hooks it up to literally a light, and a light will flash when the phone is ringing in a way that you can see it and it's prominent, so you know the phone's ringing, but it doesn't make a ringing sound. So he's like, oh, that's for the phone light. And I was like, okay. And I'm still at that point, I'm like, usually the phone light is just a light that's mounted on the wall. Why do we need a shelf?
It's a light bulb.
It's a light bulb, but usually a bare light bulb, just that flashes.
Right.
I'm like, what do we need a A shelf? Oh, I don't know. I don't care. So I leave the room, and I come back like an hour later, and I see on this shelf, it is looks like a 6-pack of Stag beer.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm like, what's that? I thought you said that was the phone light. He goes, that is the phone light. It was a promotional Stag beer 6-pack that had a light in it and lit up, and you were supposed to use it in a display in a liquor store.
Goodness.
And he put that up, and that was our phone light. And Jock and I again were like, this is our guy. I love this guy. I love that we have a beer light that's our phone light. And this.
That was the moment when we, that he liked the Southern culture on the skids. We knew this was going to work. The minute the Stag light came in, we were like, this guy's family. This is the thing that. Now, I'm not kidding.
No, I agree.
I was bonded instantly to this guy. It's like we're lichens. We're brothers from different mothers, but it was like that. That was it. I fell in love with Jay Pierce on that day.
I agree, because it is so.
I'm still in love with him.
Yeah, Jock and I, being brothers, we have a similar aesthetic and a similar, it's a brother thing. You know that, Gary, from being just having a brother. It was that. But Jay, here's this guy that we aren't related to that was so clearly in tune with our stupid thought process and having a good time and just making something silly. And it was like, that is great. Yeah, it couldn't have. And that was the thing. If it was Miller Lite, it wouldn't have worked.
If it was Stag, it had to be Stag.
Yeah, it was Stag. That was the beauty of it, is that it was Stag beer. I love it.
Years later, I spent years looking for another light like that. It was nearly impossible to find. And then years later, I found one on eBay, and I paid a small fortune for it. And that was Jay's Christmas present one year.
It was, and I cherish it, man. So I dream of the day when you and I and Jay Pierce and Margie and everybody can start another radio station, and we can have 2 phone lights, and they will each be Stag beer lights. I know he's still got that.
Right now. This is the absolute truth. At any point in my career after that, up until this day today, if Jay Pierce gave me a call and said, we're starting another radio station, I would drop everything and do it. I don't care what I got to do, where I got to go, I'm going to make that happen.
Nice.
I mean, it was only a year of my life down there, but we packed so much in, it seemed like 3 or 4 years, but I've had a very lucky career and lived a colorful life and got to do a lot of pretty cool things and work my way up in the business. There was not a year that was more fun and more fulfilling as somebody in broadcasting than working down there in Champaign with Jay Pierce and the rest of you guys. It was even the days that were a pain in the ass were somehow a joy.
Oh, there were a few days that were a pain in the ass, that's for sure. Because it was a startup.
To the last day, everything leading up to the last day was beautiful there.
Yeah, you're right.
So what was Jay's brother's name was Lucky?
His name is Andy, but his nickname, we nicknamed him Lucky.
So
I think Jock nicknamed him Lucky.
When Jay Pierce wasn't around, you just called him Jay Pierce, right? You didn't put a Mister in front of that, or you didn't have.
I think most of the time, because there were 2. It was me. I was Jay Headblade, and he was Jay Pierce. So I think I often just referred to him as Pierce.
Okay.
Pierce.
Yeah, he was Pierce, then Andy was Lucky.
Okay.
So you
was Lucky.
Pierce and Lucky, and then that was the way you differentiated between those 2. So
Margie calls him.
Yeah, we started calling him Lucky because of all the miracles that he pulled off for us, and then to this day, Jay Pierce still refers to him as Lucky.
Yeah. Jock, I agree with you. If the opportunity to work a radio station with Jay Pierce was probably at the top of my dreams again. If that if it arose, I would be 100% with you.
Absolutely. I never made less money in my life that year, and I never had more fun and more fulfilled.
Yeah.
Jay Pierce opened up a vibe and a feel there that allowed us to do a radio station that dare I say, made a difference in people's lives, know? Not just ours, the listeners. I mean, we can still go back to Champaign once in a while and bump into somebody 25, 26 years later now that either remembers us. It's like, oh my gosh, how?
Hey,
How?
Hey, Jocko, the helicopter ambulance is going to be taking off, so you're going to hear probably a very loud, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try. I'll duck.
Well,
It isn't Jay Pierce in it, so don't worry.
Oh, thank God.
The only podcast that tries to stay on the air
during a helicopter
Damn right.
takeoff.
You know why? Because we're professionals.
Everything. Do you want to? You just want to?
How about these Pierce brothers, though?
It'll be.
And their affinity for broadcasting, it's kind of insane.
Yeah, it really is.
Because there is, Gary, there is no, there is anybody else in your family?
Hang on, everyone's obsessed here with the helicopter. We're gonna see if you can. I don't know if I can point it so you can see it. Do you That's the. Well, it's not. It's
up on this roof up here.
It's gonna show up right about here. Yeah.
Guess I have to take off in the wind.
I don't even hear anything.
It's really loud here.
It's really loud. And plus, it doesn't help that we're in a courtyard and it's echoes all over the place.
I'm trying to figure out if it's actually the helicopter or just something really loud on the roof over here. Nah, it's those are blades, right? Those are rotors. Yeah. Jock, it came in earlier and brought someone in. That's how we knew about it. We saw it come in and land right before we started. Yeah. Excuse me. We're trying to podcast here? Hello? Can you speed your emergency up? Yeah. Yeah, he's just going back home.
There we go.
Is it happening?
I think so.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I wish I knew lyrics. All I know is suicide is painless.
Well, that movie.
Here we are in the Korean War, and Alan Alda has a haircut from 1976.
There it goes.
Oh, I think we got. Oh, did he go? He went off the other
He
direction.
went off the other direction.
It didn't-
Yeah.
But he's gone now.
I felt cheated.
Yeah, it was cheated.
What? That sucked, dude.
Gary, I was asking before the helicopter debacle. Were there any other people in your family that were in broadcasting? It seems like you guys are like, all of you, all the brothers are like good at this and have some affinity for it. Did this come from anywhere? And who was the first in?
Okay.
Yeah, he's got to come over and be.
Yeah, he's got to come over and be in.
It all started at a small AM radio station. What did Ted Baxter say? At a small AM radio station in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think it was Duluth.
It all started. Well, Andy was an engineer, and he was going into engineering no matter what.
Okay.
I was the one who went into broadcasting at a small AM/FM station in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. Jay came to visit, 5 years younger than me, so I was 19. He was mid-teenager.
Okay.
He was enamored of broadcasting from that day on.
Wow.
And so I can take credit for whatever you guys have been saying about my
That's
brother.
true. Yeah, the seed got planted. It got planted.
Yeah, give Gary a hug for me, will you? 'Cause it's happening him.
We'll do a fist bump.
Fist bump.
We just did it.
Fist bump.
Yeah.
I wish that we had these tapes of Jay Pierce when he was young with Andy Abrams
Yeah.
doing the fake broadcasts.
Gary, have you heard those?
They were doing.
Yes.
They just sit in a room and tape and act like they were broadcasting. And Andy Abrams, God bless him. I mean, he was just like your typical kid. He was doing it, but Jay Pierce was like he had a strange, like, lispy kind of a delivery or whatever as a kid, but his
he had his radio demeanor down.
instinctual radio demeanor and what to go with and how to pitch it and what to pick up and how to, it was like already, it was just like he was a natural. But I'm sure that, I mean, Gary, growing up with you and Lucky was, that influence. I know, well, you could probably speak to that more than I could, Jay, but I'm sure there was some influence there that made a difference.
Well, with Jock and I did similar things at home, and that would usually be him because he was the one that had the tape recorder. And we would, we didn't.
The oldest one.
Yeah, Jock's a little older than I am. And so we would do at home, we wouldn't do, I guess we did do fake radio broadcasts, but we sort of did a hybrid. We would act like we were doing a radio broadcast, but it was more, for those of you who remember Dickie Goodman, who used to do these pastiche records where he would pretend to be an interviewer and then he would ask a question and then the question would come back as a snippet from a pop song.
I know sharks are stupid, but what did you think when you took that first bite? How sweet it is.
Using the lyric as the answer to the song, and they were wildly popular in the 60s and 70s.
Perfectly described, Jay. Perfectly described.
Really?
Yeah,
So
perfectly described.
that's what Jock and I were doing on our tape recorders at home. And we thought we were pretty clever, and they sound pretty good. But that is it. You started doing that. I was incorporated into that, and just that and tape machines and all that kind of stuff. Figuring out different pitch controls on things.
So if we do this, play this on slow and play it back on high speed, we sound like chipmunks.
Like that was a lot of fun, and that's where I got enamored with all of that. The other thing that got me enamored in radio was. Remember for Christmas when your dad got me a really cool souped up radio for my bedroom? It had shortwave on it and police band and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And our dad,
The Armed Forces radio and all that stuff.
right, and Dad being the cool dude that he was, our father, he'd let me listen to the radio when I went to bed. Basically, I'd fall asleep and then he would, come in and turn the radio off. But I remember sitting in bed and at night, and most often probably listening to WLS out of Chicago on AM radio, and but just that, I remember laying in bed as a kid and thinking, that guy's in Chicago talking right now, and I'm hearing him here, and that blew my mind. But I loved it. There was something. Right then I was like, there's something so magical about this, and I've loved that medium ever since. It's my favorite of all the mediums, and I find it criminal the way it's underused and undervalued these days, but that's kind of what we were hoping to remedy a little bit when we launched our little folly of a radio station.
Your little lark.
Yeah.
I used to do that too and listen to it. Remember every once in a while you would catch something out of Nashville or maybe even New York City.
Oh God, yeah, and you jumping out of your skin that you were pulling in.
Yeah.
WABC
out of New York. You know what I mean? You'd be listening to that. It's like how is this happening?
Or Canada. I remember if we pulled in because I know people always tell those stories about the big, what were they? 100,000 watt blow torches that were down in Mexico that people could.
Those were more. Yeah.
But I don't know that those ever, at least for me, I don't recall ever getting the station from Mexico all the way up to where we were in Illinois. But I did pull in Canada a few times, and again, as a kid, you're like, that's a whole different country, man.
I remember falling asleep. I wouldn't fall asleep. I'd put the earpiece in so my parents wouldn't catch me.
Oh yeah, sneaky.
and tuning around. I found a couple basketball games to listen to. Yeah, and in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
What is that?
But it's magic when you're. I mean, I don't know that kids. Maybe kids probably have a different version of magic today. Because I think kids are usually full of wonder, but that filled me with wonder when I was a kid. It got under my skin big time.
little Ricky Bobby-ish there. Just
Yeah.
full of wonderment.
Yeah, full of wonderment. But I think that was what, even though we didn't have the same level of experience that Jay Pierce had, I think that's, Jock, what he found akin with you and me, is that it was just that feeling. And there's the stupid alarm again. Hi, ruining the podcast. But there was that...
the passion.
Yeah, it was. It was a passion for a medium and the possibilities of it. And
You guys are talking about radio, just like when you're watching the Academy Awards, like they talk about filmmaking. It's the same. You got to have the root love for it, and Jay Pierce had it. You guys got it.
Yeah, Gary's got it.
Yeah.
It's true. Thanks. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, I mean, but I think it goes beyond that, especially with somebody like Jay Pierce. It's not. It's. You can love it all you want and get in there, but there's got to be this God-given natural talent.
Yep.
That the Pierce guys have that is like almost criminal because of how much talent they have, and you spread it around a little bit to some of us, would you, please?
Monopoly, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, all-rounders.
Yeah.
You're going to sue us and break us up.
You guys are a conglomerate, the Pierce conglomerate.
Gary, did you guys ever work, all three of you ever work together in the same place or get to work together?
We wanted to. We never actually pulled that off. I want you guys to tell me about the very first time you met Jay, what your impression was.
My recollection, Jock, and this could be right. My recollection is the first time I met Jay Pierce, was it at Randy's place down there in Lincoln Park, or was it on the boat? Which one was it?
Now, see, what I remember is us going to lunch somewhere.
Okay, so we have three different stories. First impression of Jay, I remember at the place where, at the lunch in wherever it was, some restaurant, and I think Cuddles might have been there too. I'm not sure. Okay.
But it was Randy and you and I and Jay Pierce. Maybe Cuddles wasn't in it yet, but we.
Sounds like a cat.
I remember liking Jay right away. I also remember him. I also remember feeling like he really was like, who are these guys and WTF? Do you know what I mean? Like I think he was. I felt his suspicion of us, and it was not an unfounded suspicion. It should have been there, but that's kind of what I remember. But I remember when he started talking that he really knew what he was talking about, and I kind of saw it turn a little bit, Jay. This is just how I recall it. I don't know if this is real or not. When you brought up the possibility of maybe broadcasting on the internet, simulcasting on the internet. I remember going, oh, maybe
Well, that would make sense. That
maybe I'm romanticizing it, but that's what I remember. I remember it being very cool and very funny. And how Randy Abrams was very, enamored with his talents already. Like he was the dude.
He was the
my initial impression is very similar to that, Jock, too. Is that I remember. I don't know that I was trying to impress him, because I think that you and I felt that we did what we did, and I think I thought, well, what we do will speak for itself, whether programming wise, because we couldn't. I mean, the only thing we could point to. What's that?
I said, but we desperately wanted a gig right then too, though.
We did. We most definitely did. So, but I don't know as I was trying to impress him, but what I remember feeling was, I need to show this guy I know how to do what I'm gonna do, because to me, I was like, this guy's the real deal. That was my first impression, was like, okay, this guy's, I'm out of my depth. That was my first impression. I am out of my depth in radio with this guy. He knows what he's doing.
That way because you had much more experience in radio at that time than I did. and an understanding of it. And I think you really kind of carried that meeting, because I was just a dummy that was like, I like this band. I think we should play them.
You know,
I think I knew just enough to bluff my way through that, and probably just enough to be dangerous to myself and everybody who was associated with me.
Yeah, I think that helped.
my first memory of Jay Pierce is completely different.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Okay, so first of all, here I am at SIU Carbondale. Jay is a couple seven. I don't even know how old he is. Older than me, but he's a student. He's like a graduate assistant, news broadcaster. I'm a young board operator, with the potentiometers and everything. And I was working a board shift for Morning Edition. And the news anchor was somebody new, Jay Pierce. And I'm like, Jay Pierce, I don't know, I've never worked with this guy before. So, it's about like 2 minutes to the top of the hour, and the local news starts at the top of the hour, for example. And I'm looking back in the news broadcast booth, and there's nobody there. Comes to be like, and we're running promos or whatever, and I look back at the news broadcast booth with 1 minute to go, and there's nobody in there. And I'm like,
You're panicking.
I'm like,
Oh, I know this feeling.
Yeah.
I know this feeling.
And about 10 seconds to time, I look over, and Jay Pierce is there. I'm like, oh, that's Jay Pierce. And then I give him the hand cue, and he just goes right into his newscast, smooth as silk. Like not quite Champaign bar smooth on a piano, but really smooth in terms of delivering the news, right? Ends. I go to flip the source or whatever I had to do. Look over there. Jay Pierce is gone. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's an amoeba, or
Enigma. Yeah.
Because he's building a Jeep in the backyard and putting a fence up, and he's also like figuring out some kind of math equation from 17 other.
He might be communicating with aliens from another world. We don't know.
It could be. Yeah.
And then
That, I will tell you, that's the thing that one of the other things that really impressed me about Jay Pierce is that Jay, you do a good kind of a caricature of the way Jay Pierce talks to us and that stuff. I always get a kick out of what you do there. But Jay just talks like Jay does, and like all of us do. There's when you get on the air, there's a different persona that you put out there. There's something that happens where it just
You're broadcasting.
Yes, you're broadcasting. And I remember the first time I heard him actually on the air, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's got one of the most beautiful broadcasting voices I've ever heard. And I would have never kind of picked that up in the conversation,
right.
But
Exactly.
He was so smooth and flawless. I mean, I never heard the guy make a mistake. It was just so clean. The same thing you were saying, Wade. It's like he could just be in the conversation with you or something. All of a sudden, now he's got to go to the air and just go right into it.
Drop right into the radio voice.
Right, just like nothing.
Well, but the other thing is too is there's other people.
Witnessed that before.
There's people who have radio voices that sound like radio voices. Then it's an affectation.
People that try too hard.
Yeah, Jay Pierce has a radio voice. I know his radio voice, but it doesn't sound affected. It's like someone performing in a theater where they're on a stage and they have to project, so it has to be louder than a normal conversation would be, but a good actor knows how to project and still give you a dynamic of ranges in what they're doing, and that's what I think Jay does when the mic goes on. It's
very natural, Such a great voice.
What's real fun is I dug out some of our old air checks for my ride down here just to listen to some of that. The really fun stuff is because again, when we started working with Jay was just coming out of public radio at that point, and so we were about as far away from public radio, NPR, as you could be. First of all, we weren't a news station; we were a music station. So there you go, right there. But just attitudinally, we were. So he was coming out of a button-down kind of thing, where that was what was required of him. Rightly so, for what he was. When you're bringing the news, it's serious. And I remember watching it unfold when he started to relax on the air with us, and I to some degree, like, taking cues from Jock and I and how we would do, like, hey, here's how we're doing our board shift. And I think he realized, oh, I can just, and man, the promos.
Just be Jay.
The-
Just be Jay Pierce.
Yeah.
The promos are hilarious. Gary, I'll try to get you some of this stuff because you're going to, it just, there was a, just hilarious. And it was like when that started coming out of him too, was like, then Jock and I again were like, oh, he totally gets our humor. He knows exactly where we're going with this. And he jumped right in once he understood what that aesthetic was. But there was another thing I just had a thought when everyone else was talking about how Jay is on air. There's an aspect to him, and I mean this in the compliment that it sounds like. There's a Ken Nordine-esque vibe to Jay Pierce, not just in the resonance of his voice, but also in that delivery. Because Ken Nordine, yes,
laid back, very cool.
Yes, yeah. Ken Nordine is performing when he's doing word jazz.
Yes,
but he's doing it in a very relaxed way that draws you in and makes you comfortable with what he's doing, even though he's performing. And that is exactly how I feel when I listen to Jay Pierce on the radio too. It's a
voice you want to listen to.
Yeah.
You like listening. You like the sound of the voice.
Yeah.
You enjoy it. It doesn't matter what they're saying. You just like to hear the voice.
Yeah, for sure.
And not sexy. Not that. Not, I mean, because that's like a cliche. I think he's just smooth, man.
Yeah,
he's
pretty sexy though too.
Well, okay.
He is sexy.
Come on, dude. Come on.
Okay.
You know you.
Okay. I'd hit that if I was.
Come on.
Yeah. I thought so. Wait.
It's sexy. Yeah. Super sexy. Ray said. I mean, I think in the radio industry, people know that.
Well,
Like,
I think
that's the one thing. It's like, guess what? You know that Jay Pierce? Yeah, he's a great broadcaster, but boy, is that guy freaking sexy.
Sexy Pierce. I think we just got a new nickname.
Wasn't that his nickname?
Sexy Pierce.
He's
Sexy.
sexy. He's.
We got Lucky Pierce. We got Sexy Pierce. Gary, we're going to come up with a nickname for you, but it'll happen organically. Don't worry. That's how it will.
Yeah.
It took us 25 years to come up with Sexy Pierce. So.
God, you guys really closed the door on the smooth versus sexy argument. I mean, God, I feel like a fool now.
No. Well, sexy can be smooth.
I
don't know.
I don't think they're
going right
mutually.
now.
I don't think they're mutually.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
True. So.
That's like, I ran out of tape a half hour ago.
And he wishes he ran out of it 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He wishes he would have ran out of tape right when I gave my introduction.
There it is.
That's what he would have.
Well, it was too good, man. It was too sexy, baby. You want to bring it into the barn here, or?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
All right. Well, in case people don't know, I love Jay Pierce.
I love Jay Pierce too.
I love him more than these two guys do.
No, you
Collectively.
don't. No, you don't.
And I do.
Okay,
No, you don't.
I've loved him.
He's sexy.
I've loved him.
I know that he's sexy.
Oh yeah, you got
Hang
that.
on.
You got that on me.
If you loved him so much, why are you on the phone right now?
What?
I'm good. Boy, that's really below the belt.
Well, you started that volley by saying you loved him more than we did.
You opened
if
the
you'd
can,
stated
baby.
you loved him as much as we did, there wouldn't have been an argument, pal.
You open the can, baby.
I'm just being truthful. That's all. You know.
Jay Pierce, we love you so
Yeah,
much.
Jay Pierce is.
Oh my gosh.
We love you, Jay Pierce.
Jay Pierce.
Jay Pierce, you know I love you. You know that.
And I'm just a couple notches below Jocko, but yeah, I love you too.
Yeah, I mean, again, these guys do love you unbelievably, but I love you just a little bit more than they do.
Okay.
So here's your line for the Jay and Gary Pancreatic Cancer Cast. Wherever you are,
Sign.
and then over and out.
This is Wade Farrell for the Jay Pierce, Jay and Gary.
Cancer Cast.
Let me start it again. This is Wade Farrell for the Jay and Gary Pancreatic Cancer Cast. Signing off.
This is Jay Head. Oh, go ahead, Jock. Do it.
Oh no, I thought that was it. Yeah.
Oh, are you,
No,
are you
you got-
doing it for all of us? Oh, he just said his own name.
Doing it for all of us.
No, I did my own name. So you got to do it, baby.
Jock, let's do ours together.
Okay.
I'm Jay Headblade,
And I'm Jocko.
and this is the Jay and Gary Pancreatic Cancer Cast.
And we're signing off with a lot of love. me with more love than these guys.
And not a lot of professionalism.
No, not at all.
Pretty far from.
The peak
That's
of
the way
your
Jay
career.
likes it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, it is the peak of my career.
Yeah.
That'll tell you.
All right.
Yeah. Don't peak in my career.
Wave goodbye.
I don't wave. I salute. I'll do a left-handed salute too, because that's who I am.
See how much more I love you, Jay?
That's good. Woo-wee. We did that.